Hi, and welcome to Tuner Report number 4. This is Haytham Al-Hamsi from horsepowercalculators.net, and today we're going to be working on the Porsche 928. In today's Tuner Report, we are using the power calculator and the E85 calculator for a streetable conversion on the Porsche 928. The car comes with a great 5-liter or 5.4-liter V8, delivering between 300 and 350 horsepower, which was astonishing for its era. What we're going to do today is we're going to gently build on this platform with an intake, header, and exhaust combination, which is your basic bolt-on combination, albeit with a slight twist. Instead of a typical dual intake system that comes on this car stock, we're going to be sizing up an individual throttle body setup, and instead of the typical shorty headers that are out there for this car, we're going to design a long tube 4-to-1 setup, dumping into a true dual exhaust system. To turn things up one notch further, we're also going to look at a more racy and optimistic build-up. We're going to take peak power out to redline, and we're going to increase our peak power figure. We're also going to convert the car to run on E85 ethanol, E85, 85% gasoline, 15% ethanol, which comes with its own power benefits due to the different stored energy level inside the ethanol. The idea for this build-up came from the Run-List forum, and you can click on this link for more details. You'll see pictures of their custom header build. The victim, as we said, is a 1988 to 1995 Porsche 928. The engine specifications are a 5.4-liter 350 horsepower V8, 6,200 RPM redline. The engine produces 350 horsepower at 5,700 RPMs, and it produces 369 foot-pounds of torque at 4,250 RPMs. It's a 32-valve dual overhead cam engine, so it's got 4 valves per cylinder, a big 100mm bore, and a short 85.9mm stroke. Compression ratio is 10.4 to 1, which is great for all motor builds, and it's a naturally aspirated engine. 0 to 60 in 5.6 seconds and a top speed of 168 miles per hour. Pretty good for an 80s car. It was a supercar and a GT Cruiser back then, kind of a hybrid car between the two. Let's move on to the calculations. So we're looking at a 5400cc engine with 8 cylinders and a 6200 RPM redline, dual intake and dual exhaust valves with a 100mm bore. Our stroke 85.9 millimeter stroke. Compression ratio is 10.4 to 1. In stock form, the engine produces 350 horsepower at 5700 RPMs at 0 pounds of boost because it's naturally aspirated. And for this first example, I'm just going to do a basic bolt-on calculation. So I'm going to tell the power calculator that I'm going to make the same amount of power, 350 horsepower, running 8 throttle bodies, true dual exhaust setup, and an all-motor buildup. So when I tell the power calculator that I'm looking to make the same amount of power that the car makes stock, basically what I'm looking at is to make an intake, header, and exhaust that match the engine's current parameters and current power figure, so that if anything is already undersized on the car, these are the dimensions of the intake, header, and exhaust that would unlock that and give us a little bit of a power boost. I'm going to click calculate, and I'm going to go down here to my headers. I'm going to choose a long tube header. And then I'm going to click next, and that'll give me the results. So we'll see our first set of results. Expected bolt-on power if we take power out to redline is 379 or 380 horsepower. And if I scroll down here, I have my intake manifold dimensions. Basically going to be using 8 36mm throttle bodies. And then on the exhaust side we have a 1.4-inch primary pipe diameter for the header, which is 60 inches long, slightly long because we're going for a long tube. Actually, what I should do... Yeah, that's correct. And a dual 2-inch exhaust system. Now what I'm going to do is my second calculation, right here. I see that it says I can make up to 380 horsepower if I take power out to redline. Well, what happens if I also change my choice of fuel from gasoline to E85? I'm going to go back to the Advanced tab and go here to my tuning. Fuel is going to be ethanol, E85, which is 102 octane. I'm going to click on Next. And what happens here is we see this figure goes up to 420 horsepower. Because there's about a 10 to 13% power bonus that you get from switching to E85 and tuning correctly with a leaner fuel mixture at wide open throttle and more timing advance because of the higher octane fuel. So we can get up to 420 horsepower. So I'm going to take this figure now, go back to my inputs. So I'm no longer looking to make 350 horsepower. I'm looking to make 420 horsepower on E85. And I'd like the power calculator to give me the individual throttle body header and exhaust dimensions that will match this power figure when I'm going to be allowing the engine to breathe all the way up to redline and to take advantage of the ethanol and the added timing. I'm going to click on calculate. Again, we're looking for long tube headers. And if I wanted, I can customize what RPM those long tubes resonate at, but let's leave that at 3100 RPMs for now. If I really wanted to be specific, what I want to do is I'd use my peak torque figure. I could use 4250 RPMs. And that'll give me a peak at peak torque instead of at redline, which is what shorties would do. Then I'm going to switch to E85. And I'm going to click Next. And these are my results, which are here. Scroll down. So we're using a 2 1/4 inch exhaust, slightly larger than the old one. Dual 2 1/4 inch exhaust. Header primary is larger, it's 1.525 inches now. The length is the same because we're targeting the same RPM range. If I change that target RPM range, the length would change. And the intake system, we're using 41mm runners and throttle bodies. So we went from a 36mm throttle body for 350 horsepower to a 41mm throttle body for 420 horsepower. We went from a 1.4 inch header primary pipe diameter to a 1.52 inch primary pipe diameter, and we went from a dual 2 inch exhaust to a dual 2 1/4 inch exhaust. And those are the calculations, and I've summarized this over here. So you can see our specifications for the streetable 350 horsepower version, and for the more racy, it's not really a race engine, but a more racy setup with E85 conversion and going out to redline. Alright, so that's it for this week of our tuner report. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you next week. This is Haitham Hamsi from horsepowercalculators.net.